went to grad school, and met the man who became my husband. For years, I lived the married life, devoted to my family. My husband and I grew apart, and we divorced 10 years ago. In the years right after my divorce, I didn't have success with intimate relationships with men. I pined for men who were unavailable, emotionally, physically, or both. And I wasted away the years between 34 and 40 on men who couldn't or wouldn't be in a relationship with me. At 40, I was hit on by this beautiful 30-year-old guy. He reawoke my sexuality, and over the past 4 years, I have slept with a lot of men, maybe 15 to 20 of them. Most of them were one-night stands or brief flings, but there's one man in my life now. He's 18 years my junior, that I can't seem to end things with, even though it would probably be best for me. We started hooking up a little over 2 years ago. The chemistry is fantastic. He makes me laugh, and he listens, really listens to all of my problems. I live in different worlds and play different roles. I'm the funny and respectable mom at school events. I'm the suit-wearing communications manager at a big university who volunteers with community groups. And at home, I'm the weed-smoking, hip-hop listening, hula hoop dancing, and wannabe yoga instructor who has sex with much younger men. I mean, WTF. Am I having a midlife crisis? To give you more context about where things stand in my life right now, I was having a shit time at work for the past year with incredibly abusive bosses, so I went on medical leave. And then I found out I was going to be forced to resign anyway. So unless I find something else as soon as possible, I'll have no job in a couple of months. Both of my teenage daughters have been diagnosed with depression. One of my daughters is transgender and in the process of transitioning, and she recently spent a week in the adolescent psych unit due to depression. My youngest daughter is cutting herself and was suspended from school for smoking pot. Meanwhile, my mom was very sick throughout all of this, and a few weeks ago, she died.
Do you want me to take it home from here?
Sure.
All right, so part 2. The man I've been seeing off and on for 2 years is flaky, never on time, often goes weeks or months with no contact, and told me recently he's not boyfriend material. He has said he loves me and has shown that in numerous ways, so I end up super confused. I think he's insecure about being with me as I'm much more together and mature than he is, and I honestly don't know how comfortable I feel about taking our relationship public. I'm out of steam and overwhelmed. When I look forward just a few more years, I see myself being free to travel and to move out of this college town into a real city. Perhaps I'll live in New York City for a while, or move back to the West Coast, or travel with my oldest daughter to Paris, as we've talked about, or do all those things. Right now, I'm stuck in this town and have to make it work. My therapist says I shouldn't beat myself up about it, and I know I shouldn't, but I can't get past the feeling that I'm doing something slightly out of my control, and I don't like that feeling. Do you have any light to share with me, dear sugars? Signed, looking to move forward and feeling stuck. We promised a long, complex, anguished letter.
Right.
I'll tell you, Cheryl, that the thing that is so amazing to me, actually, looking, you need to hear this. You're somebody who identifies yourself as a compartmentalizer. And I think in your own way, you really have compartmentalized in this letter in a fascinating way. Your mom died recently after what sounds like a long illness. You have 2 daughters who are both struggling with depression. One of them was in a psych ward for a week. And you have a work conflict that has led to a medical leave, and you know that you're going to lose your job. All of those sad facts are bearing down upon you right now. It might not be that your life is out of control at the moment, but it is in crisis. And one of the things you need to recognize is when you're in crisis, what people tend to do is they retreat into the past. They think maybe that's going to offer the escape. And it sounds to me a lot like, and Cheryl, I'm fascinated to get your take, in some ways you are trying to go back, as we all wish to do, to a simpler time where you could just be on the road with the Grateful Dead or have sex with this young guy and smoke weed like none of our bad decisions matter. And the truth is that no amount of escapist sex, drugs, or anything else is going to undo those confusing and heartbroken feelings.
Mm-hmm. She's in the midst of a hard time in her life right now.
Right.
And when we're in the midst of a hard time, we sometimes forget that it's just a time. It's just an era. It's just a moment. There's a collision of so many things. The teenagers the death of the mother.
Yeah.
And in many ways too, she says, am I in a midlife crisis? I'm 46, she's 44. It is a moment of transition for many people when you start to say, okay, my youth is over. And now there is this middle age that I'm stepping into, and what does it mean? One of the things that just strikes me about this letter most is that she's telling us, I like this guy, I'm sleeping with this younger guy. There are so many ways that, I'm having fun with him, the sex, the conversations. And there are also so many ways that I'm feeling like it's not quite right for me. And so to me, it's like, it's not the question, should she be with a younger man or not? It's, does she feel that this relationship that isn't really fulfilling her in any way, does she feel like that's holding her back from stepping into that next era of her life? Is it creating more chaos or more consolation in her life? And I think for a while there, this sex with younger men, it sounds to me like it was consolation. But she's telling us that she needs to move on, that she needs to find a greater sense of calm in her own life, and also a deeper and more meaningful relationship with a partner. And it doesn't really matter how old that partner may be, whether he ends up being 20 years younger or 20 years older or her age.
Right.
She's clearly not feeling that she's gone down the right path romantically.
Right.
There's this wonderful line in a Bob Dylan song that I love where he just says simply, if something's not right, it's wrong. And that has been like just that.
Something not right, it's wrong.
Is something's
That's how
not right,
it
it's
actually
wrong.
says, but yeah.
That's right. So looking to move forward, I want you to write that down on a piece of paper. I want you to write it down. And I want you to just tape it somewhere where you just see it. It's like a reminder to you. If something's not right, it's wrong.
Right. And she's actually told us exactly what's wrong. I mean, what you've done here is provided such a generous document, such a generous accounting of what's happening in your life that it's kind of right there in front of your nose.
Mm-hmm.
She tells us right at the outset, I wasted away. I pined for men who were unavailable, emotionally, physically, or both. For years I did this. From the years of 34 to 40, I wasted all this time on men who weren't available. Guess what, Looking? You're involved in another relationship with a man who's not available to you.
She's doing it again.
She's doing it again.
And that's why she knows it's not right. That's why she's feeling uncomfortable. So maybe that first step is to say, okay, there are things I like about this relationship with this young man, but not enough of it is good for me. So I'm going to step away from that. And once you make one change, it allows you to do things differently, to see your life slightly differently. That doesn't mean it's the only change that needs to be made.
Yeah.
But how about you make that one change?
I actually think that the letter, in a way, is an expression of Looking's coping mechanism. Rather than focusing on the bad data of what's really happening in her life, a mom who's just died, two daughters who are deeply troubled right now. But, the space on the page, you and I as writers, and when we look at manuscripts, I always talk about this idea of how much space does it take on the page? If it's really important, emotionally and psychologically, how come you're only mentioning it in one sentence?
Right.
How come bad boyfriend number 25 gets 3 pages and mom who just died gets 1 sentence? There's something avoidant there, and she's retreating into the past. And we're all like this, right? We all want to escape into some possible realm of the way it could be. But that actually doesn't get us to make any progress. Looking, part of what you have to face right now is that you need to be reconnecting to what you need to do as a mom to help your daughters through this difficult time. And that's not glamorous work, and that's not as fun as getting high and having hot sex. But what seems to be prevailing here is that there's a certain kind of guilt that's being converted into self-punishment because she's behaving in a way that is literally guaranteed to get her a result that she doesn't want. You deserve Looking to be with a man who actually loves you and makes you feel secure in that love. What is the reason that you're keeping yourself from that?
I mean, I really related to this letter, even though I went through kind of my version of this experience in my 20s. Interestingly, in the years after my mother died, where I did use sex as a consolation. I was wildly promiscuous in ways that didn't always serve me. And like Looking to move forward, it was also a great time of sexual liberation for me. I learned a lot about myself. I don't regret having slept with a bunch of people during that time, but there did come a day where I thought, this is not serving me.
This is not a path out.
Depleting me.
Yeah.
And it's also keeping me from facing some of the things I had to face really grieving my mom, really figuring out who I was. I always say I went through a mid-20s crisis.
Yeah.
And, because what that was for me is like my final growing up. I had one life and then I had to have another life, and I had to be the person who absolutely defined that life.
Yeah.
And, then that's when I set out on the Pacific Crest Trail and so forth. But I remember in the months right before I went on my PCT hike, which is essentially the end of the time that I was in this era that Looking to Move Forward is describing,
Mm-hmm.
I met up with this guy who was the leader of this really cool
Motorcycle gang.
sort of rockabilly country band. And the sexual chemistry between us was absolutely torrid. I mean, it was so hot. And he, even though he was married, the moment he got himself alone with me, he looked me in the eye and he said, "Let's have an affair."
Wow.
And I really, 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 really wanted to have an affair with him. And I didn't. I stepped back. And I remember actually having this image in my mind of a building on fire. And for once in my life, I didn't step into the fire. I wasn't in the burning building. I turned my back and I walked away from the burning building. And it hurt because I really wanted to be in the fire. The fire is where the fun is.
Yeah. Yep.
And I walked away from it, and I learned so much in that walking away.
Yeah.
Because it was me saying, I understand the power and the allure of this. I understand that this is a thing that actually made me feel affirmed and made me, forget my grief and made me, I'll do all of these things. And this is what Looking to Move Forward is talking about. These great sexual liberations have given her valuable and good things. But they've also caused her to sort of torture life. And now it's time for her to walk away.
Yeah.
And so, she's at that moment and she has the power to do that.
Yeah. She knows the answer. Like most of our letter writers, it's not actually, I deserve to have sex with these young girls, but it's not actually getting me what I want in life.
Yeah. It's interesting because, we talked about how long the letter is and dramatic and the many twists. But I think that Looking to Move Forward, the way out of it is very simple. It's very simple. It's a one step at a time, one foot in front of the other kind of movement through the many serious things that need to be faced and dealt with and thought about and confronted. And it doesn't serve you to get all tangled up with guys who don't give you what you need.
Yeah, and it's hard because you would have had a great time with that guy, but what you wouldn't have, you think about it still, but what you wouldn't have had was the experience, the cleansing, purifying experience of going off alone with all the stuff that you were carrying with you.
That's right.
And that's what, this is what you have to do.
I have a lot of optimism. I think that Looking to Move Forward, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
You're just going to be fine. Be smart. Go easy on yourself. But make good decisions. That is the thing that we always need to be reminded at various points in our lives, that we're in charge of our lives, that our lives are up to us. Nobody's going to live them for us. Right. And you can live yours better than you've been living it.
Right. Might not be as fun for the moment, but the payoff is in a few years you might be heading off to Paris with a happy daughter.
That's right.
So here's to that hope.
Dear Sugar Radio is produced by WBUR in Boston.
We are produced and edited by Lisa Tobin.
Engineering and production help by Jim Brumberg.
We are here at Digital One in Portland, Oregon.
And you can write to us, letters at dearsugarradio@gmail.com.
And also remember to listen and subscribe on iTunes. We are grateful for all your support, all your letters, all your ears.